Hi everyone, and welcome to the day two of the workshop. I hope you all are excited for the day two as well, right? And all those who are on YouTube, welcome, and we hope that you will be staying with us till the end of the workshop. I am Krati, and I'm so happy to take the start of the event. Starting to introduce our instructor, because for those who have joined for the first time, meet Prasan. Can we shift to the next slide, please? So meet Prasad, that he built and trained and mentored high-performance design interns teams across the world, and he co-founded UX Reactors that falls under Inc. 5000 companies.
I think I can take it from here. Krati just muted herself. Let's go on to the next slide. So one of the reasons we are doing this is, again, we are basically planning to do a Hire-A-Thon that starts in January 2022. Okay. There are a number of companies that are in here, but primarily the two main companies that are hiring are UX Reactor and NB Healthcare. We are an Inc. 5000 company. NB Healthcare is an Inc. 100 company. I believe they were ranked 105. And Inc. rankings are usually the top private companies in the US. All right. So both of these places have very mature design teams. They're very mature design processes, systems, and the companies themselves trust the organization significantly to kind of, they trust their design teams to deliver high quality work, right? So what we are basically going to do is it's going to be a competition, and we will talk a little bit more about the competition towards the end. It's open for people anywhere between 1 to 5 years of experience. And then the top 5 designers get a chance to win up to 5 lakhs each. Based on the competition and the outcomes. If we hire you, that's where you are. So I think this is something that's really important for us. Like I said yesterday, talent is what keeps a company alive. And so this is our way of kind of saying, the best of you, we would love for you to come and apply, compete, and then see how it works. So let's go on to the next slide. So before we start, I want to make sure all of you should have received an email in your inbox with your evaluation. Okay. I believe there were, I think it's 100 plus 110 folks have completed their initial assessments of interaction visual research, what your specializations are. So you should have received an email in your inbox. If not, check your spam or check your promotion, and make sure it's out of your spam and promotions. Make sure you've kind of put it out of the spam and promotions. If anybody has not received, please reach out to Rajiv on Discord or on WhatsApp. They will help you. But at this point, you should have an assessment of where you are. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. So this is very interesting. So of course, if you add all of them up, they're not going to add up to 100, but for the 110 or whatever. But I'm just going to give a very quick breakdown of what we have noticed. There are about 51 people that have shown an aptitude towards research out of the 100 people. Okay. There are about 68 people that have shown an aptitude for interaction design. Okay. And there are about 35 people that have shown an aptitude for visual design. Okay. And this is very, very interesting. This is probably, this is interesting for a couple of different reasons, where when you start looking at interaction, visual, and research, they're completely different mindsets. So when you're looking at, combinations, we have research and interaction design. There are about 40 people that are combination of both. And then interaction and visual design, there are about 25 people that are combination of both. And you have UX research and visual design, which you have about 10 people that are a combination. And there are 28 of you that have an aptitude for all three. So you could go in any one of those directions. Okay. So this is very, very interesting, because when you look at all three, right? So it's a very rare skill, to be able to kind of think about a product from all three different perspectives. So this is perfectly normal. And this is something that I want all of you to understand is when you apply for jobs, you try to put research, interaction, visual, everything and do a really good job. And honestly, you can't be good in everything, right? Even just from a self-reported data, less than 28% of the people were doing it, right? Now, when you're looking at research, interaction, and visual, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more in terms of the depth of what each of those roles are and what kind of personalities are required. Because again, if you understand your interest and you understand your attitudinal preference, you go in there, you win the game. Okay. If you don't know what you're supposed to be good at, then you're kind of struggling. So that is where it is. So let's go on to the next slide. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about all the different specializations in design, what is required to get into those spaces. We're also going to do a comparative analysis of two different portfolios so you can see what is there. And then finally, you're going to get 5 tips on exactly what you need to do in your portfolio. Okay. If you're ready, just type in yes and we can get going. Awesome. Let's go. Okay. So this is one of those things that, I was giving a challenge for all of you about with Bhaskar. Bhaskar did something very interesting that, if you can catch it, that is where you can understand how he was able to, ace those interviews. So let's go to the next one. So there are 2 things that companies will decide on when they're trying to hire you. Okay. The first one is scope of thought. Okay. So they're basically going to look at at what level is this individual thinking? Okay. Is this person thinking at a feature level? So generally, if somebody's thinking at a feature level, you have to kind of give them feedback. Okay. Micromanage them, put this there, put that there. They don't understand why something is being done, but if you tell them what to do, they'll be able to do it. Right. So that's a feature level mindset. The next level is screens. Are they able to do screens, make them look good, whatever, order them, structure them? That's the next level is problems. Are they able to solve problems? So, I'm only getting so much traffic. And Aruni, I see you furiously writing it down. Don't worry. It's all on YouTube. So you don't have to write it. Just absorb, ask questions. That's fine. Okay. So yeah. So then the next level you're thinking about is problems. So just think problems. Okay. So is this person, when you give this person a problem, can this person solve it? The next level is product. So somebody's saying, I want to create this product. So now this individual is themselves going out, researching all the problems, figuring out how many screens have to be there, figuring out how many features have to be there. They're figuring everything out. At the highest level, you're looking at experiences. Okay. So can this person design experiences? Okay. So when you look at technical skills, how well can you do it? So if you're designing features, how well can you do features? Okay. If you're designing screens, how well can you do screens? So the idea is, let us say I tell somebody, okay, design a screen for me. And this person always comes back designing an amazing screen for me. Okay. Can I promote that person to a problem solving role? Not really, right? So this is where you have to understand there are 3 different zones in this. This is what companies are basically trying to figure out. So if you hit next, the first zone is called the zone of stagnation. Okay. This is where a lot of folks go into the job and stagnate into that job, because what you are thinking is, my boss told me to do this widget. I did it in 15 minutes. So my boss keeps giving me widgets and stuff like that, and I keep doing it really, really well. Okay, Bharat says, can I please introduce myself? I'm going to introduce myself shortly, but the question that you're basically looking at is, if you can do a feature or a screen or a problem really, really well, but you're not able to kind of go to the next level, the next scope of thought, you're basically stagnated in your company, because the company cannot promote you. At best, if you do features really well, at first they can, keep you an individual contributor. If you do screens really well, they can give you 1 or 2 feature level guys and say, you manage this guy and your career is done. Okay. So that's what the first level is the zone of stagnation. The second level, if you hit next, is what you call the zone of frustration, right? This is where, let us say you are technically not very skilled, but your scope of thought is very big, right? So you can actually sit down there and you can say, okay, yeah, you have to do this experience, this experience, this experience, but you don't know how to break it down. You don't know how to execute it. You don't know how to communicate it to somebody else. Now, you don't know what to do with that, right? And so in that situation, you cannot execute. You're incapable of execution. So in that situation, you get frustrated because you're saying, I have so many good ideas. I'm not able to execute it. My company is not able to see my, see the quality of my work. So you get frustrated. So interestingly, the zone that is in the middle, right? If you hit next, that is the zone of growth, right? So this is a really, really important concept that you want to understand as you're planning your career. Okay, which is you don't need to be a perfect expert in everything, right? Neither do you need to know perfectly about all your scope of thought, right? So what you need to do is you need to, at every time, you're basically balancing your technical skills with your scope of thought. Okay, and you're growing in that space, and that's how you grow. A lot of people, when they come and ask me, the simple thing that I say is when I grew in my career, at the first level, I was just thinking, how do I make this product work, right? At some point, I was thinking, well, what problems am I solving, right? Why am I even doing this product? What experience is my customer getting? So the moment my thought process changes, the way I think about the problem changes very, very dramatically. Okay. So today we will talk about technical skills specifically. Okay. So now Bharat had a very interesting question, I believe. He says, can you introduce yourself? Awesome. So Bharat, my name is Prasad. I have built design teams all around the world. I've worked with 500 companies. I think I got a bunch of patents. And if you probably use Google or Yahoo or Bing or Microsoft or whatever, whenever you search, you see the suggestions come down below. That's a feature that I've designed. Okay. So I have been a designer for more than 25 years. I run a design company. I've co-founded a Inc. 5000 design company, and I enjoy teaching and I enjoy kind of helping other people succeed, right? And along the way, I also help companies succeed as well, because if I identify right talent, I'm able to move that talent to the companies. Companies succeed, people succeed, I'm happy. Does that answer your question, Bharat? Bharat hasn't said yes or no. Okay, cool. So I'm assuming I've answered Bharat's question, but when I say scope of thought, here's an instance. Okay. Let us say that, when you ask people, what have you done? Okay. Somebody comes back to me and says, sir, I did this screen, look at all these buttons, these icons, all of this stuff. That is feature level thinking. Okay. This person is doing stuff that looks good at feature level. Okay. Button ho gaya, ye ho gaya, widgets. Okay. The next level is screens. So the person is kind of talking about screens as in like, yeah, when you look at the screen, I have to order the content this way. Otherwise, people will not like the information or whatever. I'm making the screen look beautiful. So you're looking at how you're putting all these widgets together into one screen. So that's where you're thinking about it. When you're looking at a problem, you're saying, well, how do I get people to engage with my product? Right? People look at one or two screens and they drop off. They stop using my product. So how do I get them to use all my screens, right? To not give up. So then that is where you're actually realizing like, okay, screens are irrelevant, right? What is relevant is the strategy to put those screens together, and within those screens, those widgets. So for you, screens are just a small part of the larger thought process. So that is where you're thinking problems. Okay. Now, when you're thinking products, you're thinking, okay, how do I create a product for ordering medicines online? So you're thinking, well, what problems are the users facing, right? Maybe one problem is they don't know what medications they have. The second problem is, well, they don't trust the medicines. The third problem might be, so you're identifying a bunch of problems. For each of those problems, then you're identifying your strategy and your screens and your features. So that's how you're kind of thinking through. But at the highest level, you're thinking like, and an experience level, you're thinking, well, how do I make people feel, have a great experience when purchasing medicines, right? So that's very different from a product, because when you're doing experiences, you're not just thinking online experiences, you're thinking offline as well, right? So it could be offline where, you go into the store and the guy behind the counter says, hey, Mr. Prasad, I notice you come here, I notice these are the medicines you usually take. Would you want me to order them for you? Right? Or would you want me? So that's an experience that's completely offline. You haven't really created an online experience for that, but it's an experience that the salesperson is seeing and they're giving that experience to you. So that is when you're thinking experiences. So that's how you think about the scope of thought. Okay, experiences might include multiple products. So in this case, there will be a product for the salesperson, there's a product for the customer, and then within those products, you might have multiple problems. You'll have problem for sales, you have problem for customers. Then under each of those problems, you're thinking screens, and under those screens, you're thinking features. Does that answer your question, Vivek? Just type in yes if you got it. Awesome. Cool. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so there are a number of specializations. And again, this is something that I want to kind of drive through for all of you guys. During World War I, if you wanted to fly a plane, okay, the planes were literally those biplanes. You have those two wings and you're flying it. So what they would do is they'd go into like a bar and they would say, hey, we are looking for more pilots. How many people here want to become pilots? And you'll probably have like 10, 15, 20 drunk people come out like, I want to fly. Okay, come on in, right? The next day morning, they will basically, give you the basics. You pull this lever, this happens, this happens, this happens. And then you probably have like maybe 1 or 2 hours of instruction, and then they'll give you the plane, now go fly, right? If you come back alive, you're an ace, right? If you don't come back, good, you were not even a pilot, right? But today, if you think about how aviation works, it's very, very different, right? It's a very, very safe. In those days, you used to see like, failure rates of almost like 100% of the people would die every 3 or 4 months, right? Every pilot would die in 3 months. That was the average lifespan. But today, if you start thinking about it, it's a very, very safe environment. So what do? Even before you're allowed to fly a plane, you have to do so many courses on the ground. There's a lot of theory. There's a lot of science that you have to do before you start getting into the cockpit, before you're allowed to even touch a plane from the inside. So that is exactly what is happening. So design in the past used to be that, hey, you can draw well, you're a designer, right? Today, it's a science, right? You have to understand the science. You have to understand how you're applying that science, because products, like I said yesterday, if Pokemon Go got its first 50 million customers in 19 days, now imagine how much weight there is on the product designer, right? And again, if you want to be the best, that is something that you want to think about. So when you come in here and you're thinking about specializations in UX design, there are multiple specializations, okay? The 3 basic specializations are research, interaction, visual, okay? Then there is another specialization, which is content, because what should you say and how should you say it? So there is a content specialization. Again, you'll start realizing not everybody has to do good colors, good layouts, because I'm colorblind, I'm still a good designer. Right? So I cannot do visual design, but I know how to manage visual designers, right? And again, think about the scope, right? So I'm not going to be an expert at everything. I know how to manage people to kind of get it going. So that's the game that you're looking at. And then when you look at content, these are people that probably have, really good SEO skills. They understand, how people perceive information, what information to present, what order to present. So that's something that these guys are looking at, right? So it's not, don't mistake me, it's not somebody with a bachelor's in English literature. That's not the English literature guys won't succeed here, right? It's somebody who can understand how a person consumes information, and they're presenting the right information at the right time. Okay, so that's a very different kind of way of looking at it. Then you have design prototyping, which is where you're looking at how quickly can you prototype an idea. Okay, so in fact, within one of our members, Saddal, was able to look at the whole Gmail experience and prototype it in 4 hours, like complete functionality, right? That's what I call like a really strong prototyper. You're able to take it and prototype it, and you're going to able to get it done. And then you have something called design operations. Okay, now design operations is interesting. This is a mix of program management and design. So you are now saying, okay, the operations guys are looking and saying, okay, what questions need to be answered, what are people doing, what products need to be done. So they're looking at a very strategic level and they're allocating resources. So they're like the central, and this is a very relatively new, now I wouldn't say it's very new, but it's been around for 4 or 5 years. But these are people who understand operations as well design, and they're basically planning resources across. And generally, in most type 3 companies, you will see a design operations person driving the show. Okay, so this is what is going on. So there is somebody that says, so Munmun says UX designers are designated as product managers technically or designers specifically. So product managers and designers are very different skills. It's very different mindsets. It's very different specializations. Product managers are kind of looking at it from the business perspective. Designers are looking at it from the people perspective, right? So it's a very different perspective and it's a very different specialization altogether. Now, what I have seen in India, and this is something that, I'm starting to see more and more of, and it's probably a function because now, because product managers are expected to work with designers, they also learn, like, as part of their curriculum, I believe it's called user acceptance testing. So they have to kind of do a little bit of user acceptance testing or something like that. So there are some design related courses that are taught to product managers as part of their MBA program. Now, what has also happened, interestingly, is this is a global phenomena. Designers and management guys, MBA guys, design degrees and MBA degrees are actually, designers are expected to take courses in MBA and MBA guys are expected to take courses in design. And this is common in the top 5 or 10 business schools in the world. You look Harvard, Stanford, all of these places have amazingly strong design programs, and they expect their business guys to take design programs and then the design guys to take business programs. So there is a lot of overlap, but still the specialization remains. All right. So are we clear with this slide? Should we go on to the next one?
So I have a question on the previous slide, the graph you showed.
All right.
Yeah. So I am from architecture background, like 5 years experience working, and currently I have switched to this. So I have a question on this, that I feel like that I fall in the zone of frustration. I feel so, but I simultaneously I also think that it depends on the project. Like, for example, there is some problem given, and I have used that, and I have faced that problem in my previous time. So I fall in zone of growth because I know I'm aware of that situation, or I have seen those things, or for example, some food delivery application. So maybe sometimes it depends on the project, that sometimes I lie in zone of growth or zone of frustration. So where I'll be a good fit, a product company or a boutique firm or a completely designing consultancy company? I wanted to ask.
So I think this is a very interesting question. Because a lot of you, in fact, this question goes back to people like, okay, hey, I done animation, right? So where do I fall in my career? Okay. So, or I've done architecture, where do I fall? So the point being is, maybe, and this is where you call interoperability of skills. Okay. So what you're basically doing is, in architecture, you probably have reached a certain level, right? So one thing I would say is stagnation. Why I say stagnation is, it is very hard for somebody who's not able to improve their scope of thought to help them increase their scope of thought. It's very hard to teach them how to think, right? However, for the person who's thinking, when they get frustrated, you can teach them how to not get frustrated and how to solve the problem. Okay, so the zone of stagnation in many ways is like, difficult to say it. It is, it's the place where people go and stop, right? Whereas zone of frustration is where people go, but then they learn and they get back into the zone of growth. Okay, because you have the maturity to understand that what worked in the previous step will not work in the next step. Okay, and so when you're learning, coming from a different domain to a new domain, you're basically, when the people who are in the zone of frustration, you probably reached a certain level in your previous level. Right. Now you're just taking your scope of thought and applying it to the new domain, and you have to learn the technical skills. That's what you have to do. So you bring the same scope of thought, but you learn new technical skills. Now you're back into the zone of growth.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, cool. So Mukesh,
Thank you
I'm
so
going to
much.
talk about the courses, but let's keep going because we have a lot of content that we need to talk about. Okay, so now here's research, the first thing, right? Now, a lot of people think user research, usability studies, is it? No, research is a very specialized field in itself. Okay, there are probably 4 new methods that are coming out every year, and as far as I know, there are probably hundreds of methods right now, out of which what we have done is there are only about 18 methods that you need to understand, minimum. Okay, and then once you understand these, then everything else is a combination of these fundamental techniques. All right. So when you're looking at research, the focus on research, for those of you that have qualified as research, right? That said, in the email, if it says you're a research guy, or you are a combination of research and something, the specialization, the things that you're going to do as research is, are you asking the correct questions? Are you implementing the correct method to answer those questions? Are you identifying the problems and are you prioritizing the problems correctly? Now, are you generating insights from your observations? And are you able to test the solutions? Okay, so these are the kind of activities and the kind of job descriptions that you will see for a researcher. Okay, any questions on research? Cool. Let's go on to the next slide. So the next one is interaction design, right? Interaction design, the mindset is very, very different. Okay, so interaction design is, you're basically looking at, it's a very mathematical way. It's like, this is where engineers and architects ace interaction design. Okay, because in fact, I think in India, what I feel is architecture is probably the only program that has a respectable rigor in it, right? Even engineering has been like a one-night batting or one-night studies or whatever, and you pass or whatever, everything I say. But architecture, you really can't do that. You have to put in your time doing it. So when you're doing interaction design, okay, you're looking at metric-based ideation. What is the outcome I want? How are my ideas achieving it? What are the functionalities? What is the interactivity? So how do different pages interact with each other? How do different features interact with each other? So this is what you're looking at when you look at functionality and interactivity. Then you're looking at, okay, what was the problem that I said and how am I connecting everything together? How are all my screens connected? So let us say that, somebody in Amazon is coming, because if you look at the shopping cart, you can come to the shopping cart from so many places. You might get an email, say, hey, you got something in your shopping cart, continue shopping. So you might hit and go directly to your shopping cart. Or somebody might come to the homepage and click on the shopping cart and go there. Or somebody might come to the homepage, go to a product, add to shopping cart, express checkout, and go to the shopping cart. So there's so many ways to come there, right? So the interaction designer is looking at all these possible paths and they're connecting it all together. Right. So if you want to think about it, it's literally like, this is exactly what an architect does. This is exactly what a mechanical engineer does, because they're like connecting and figuring out. This is also what, a urban planning person does. So these are the kind of skills that will translate very, very well into interaction design. And basically, these are the kinds of problem: help, recognition, understandability, control, accuracy. These are the kinds of things you're solving there. Okay, now let me see if there's some other question that was there. So what is qualitative and quantitative is what Sachin was asking. So my deal is like, qualitative and quantitative is numbers, right? So you are measuring numbers. Qualitative is what are people thinking and saying, right? So quantitative is 500 people traveled by car on this road, right? Qualitative is, out of those 500 people, I talked to 10, 20 people and they were telling me that they were going to office, right? So there's a difference in the quality of data. So one is focused on the details that you cannot measure, and the other one is the measurable components. Okay, cool. So, Harsha says I'm an MCA, which is an entry position I get if I do UI UX design course. So I can answer this towards the end. We have a lot of material to cover, Harsha. So wait till the end or tomorrow morning. So ask your question on the YouTube video and then I'll prioritize it there. So converting to full time again, let's put that to tomorrow. What do you say that information architecture is one of the primary responsibilities for interaction designer, right? See, Information architecture is, right? But the point is, information architecture is a small part of the larger picture. Because this is where, when I say information, and I stopped saying information architecture because people misunderstand information architecture and do other stuff. So when I say information architecture, people think, it's that tree structure. This website, this page will connect to these pages, and that is the wrong way to do it. In today's world, if you do that, that solution is for static websites. If you're trying to do that kind of a solution for dynamic transactional websites that most of you will expect to work in, that is not the good way to do it. So that's why I'm not talking about information architecture, because yes, it is important, but it is important depending on the context of the problem you're solving. Okay, cool. So let's go on to the next slide. And by the way, I just want to add one more thing for researchers. Generally, the people that kind of succeed in those kinds of psychology, cognitive psychology, mathematics, statistics, because you could be a quantitative researcher or a qualitative researcher. So there are many different specializations of research. And so all those specializations would actually make really good researchers. So now coming into visual design. Visual design is the game of perception. It is the game where you're using design to influence people's emotions and behaviors. Okay, and it is all about how things look, how they make you feel, right? And it's also about enhancing the usability of the experience. So a lot of times people will say, is a visual designer the same as a graphic designer? And I deliberately use the term visual designer because graphic designer, visual designer, two completely different roles. Okay, graphic designer is, you might create a screen, you might create a business card, you might create a poster, you might create a hoarding. None of the three have to be consistent with each other, right? I mean, as long as the colors are relatively same, it's fine. But for a visual designer, the difference is you're not creating one artifact at a time. You're creating rules so that the software can create millions of screens dynamically. Just think about it from the perspective of Google, right? Google is the world's largest website. Okay, but at the same time, it's only a single page, right? It's a search result page. But based on the keywords that you use, you might get advertisements, you may not get advertisements. You might get, news on top, you might not get news. You might get coupons, you might not get coupons, right? So the page itself is dynamically changing in real time. So what the designer there did was they created those rules, those systems, right? And that's what the visual designer does when you're in the UX space. You're thinking systems. You're not thinking one screen at a time. Okay. And that is the difference. It's a systemic approach that makes the person a graphic designer, a UX designer. All right. So everybody understand this, just type in yes, and we're ready to go on to the next step. Because we want to evaluate portfolios as well. Okay, so I think one person asked me to repeat. So can you explain, can you just tell me what you want me to repeat, Kalpana? Maybe you can unmute yourself and just ask. So what is the question, Kalpana? Can you, you want to know about visual design or everything else? Okay, the difference between graphic design and visual design. Okay. So when a graphic designer does it, they're looking at creating individual artifacts one by one. Okay. When a visual designer is designing a screen or designing something, they're thinking about a website that may have pages beyond of what they designed, right? Today, the product might have 5 pages. Tomorrow, it might have 10 pages. Day after tomorrow, it might have 150 pages. All right. So the number of pages change, right? The scope of the pages change. The content in the page changes. So what happens is, if you just say that my page is going to be static and I'm designing it, that's graphic design. When you're thinking, okay, how will my page evolve given that there are new pages going to come, or given that there are new problems that the product has to solve, or given that there may be new users that might be coming into the system, how will my page evolve? So when you think that way and you're designing your screens, then you're designing your product to be scalable. So that is visual designer. Okay. Cool. Does that answer your question, Kalpana? All right, cool. So yeah, so Om says design systems. Exactly, right? Design systems is really, really important. So this is where, for example, in fact, whoever is presenting, can you take us, can you stop and go to ui8.com? Okay, can you come out of this presentation and share ui8.com?
Yes, I'm sharing.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, let me see. There's one other question. You switch your question from software developer to UX and UI. Oh, something is happening here. No, UI8, the number 8. Yeah. So this is interesting. This is actually a pretty decent way of thinking design systems. Okay. So, and again, these are not obviously, the Rockstar design system, but they're pretty good for you to start thinking about it. So just click on one of the featured design guys, right? One of the featured. There are designers who basically create these systems throughout, day in and day out. So they're basically creating complete UI kits for you. Okay, so they're basically creating all the components, the colors, the rules, when you're going to use what kind of colors, right? How you're going to do different kinds of notifications, what is the order, what is the visual hierarchy. So all of that stuff they're defining. And so let's scroll down. I believe maybe you may not be able to see everything unless and until you kind of buy it. But again, they will put all your icons in there. Everything is standardized. All you have to do is just take, pull and drag and drop and execute on your screen. So this is where, somebody who understands design systems is able to do it. But even then, a visual designer doesn't even have to do that much to start off. To get your first job, you don't even need to do that. All you need to do is you need to be able to take a design system and create screens based on that, right? If you're able to do just that much, you should be able to get your job. Okay. And after a few years of experience, you should be able to create your own design systems. Okay. Now there are a lot of advanced concepts in design systems, and I'm not going to touch up, talk a lot more about it, but know that there is a lot of science and technicality there that you have to master if you're deciding to go down the visual design path. Just like if you go into the interaction, there's a lot of technicality. If you go into visual research also, there's a lot of technicality. So in all of those, there's technical components that you have to be aware of. All right. So this is switched careers. So I'm going to, let's push that question to tomorrow. How to be creative while designing. So I've actually done a video on that. So if somebody can share it, it's Ideation. This is a class that I do teach to my intensive folks. So the same video is available. And, one of the things that I say is, ideation, everybody thinks, oh my God, I can't do ideation. No, everybody struggles with ideation, including me when I started my career. And there are simple techniques, and ideation, the more you practice your brain, the better you get at ideation. That's what it is. So there's some, practicing techniques that I put in there. So there's a YouTube video where I talk about ideation techniques. So in the college channel, just go ahead and go check that out and you'll be able to get there. Okay. Now, what is the difference between UI design and visual design? So again, I don't know really honestly, what UI design is. It's just widget designing is what I'm assuming. But, I genuinely do not believe in the term UI design. It doesn't exist because you're either doing just widgets or you're doing coding. At least that's what I've seen in terms of the jobs that are out there, and that those kinds of jobs will not take you anywhere in your career, right? So, our organization more focused on solving user problems and business problems. Let's put that for tomorrow, right? Om says material design by Google or Carbon by IBM. Absolutely, right? Really good point, Om. This is something like, if you want to do design systems and other, go look at Carbon or material design documentation, and you will actually really see how comprehensive design systems are. Okay. Now, Sanjay says, what is accessibility? Let's push that to tomorrow. We have to migrate our app from XD to Figma. So that's a technical thing. I'm sure somebody in the community will be able to answer that. Right. Yeah. So if a design system is in place, can a graphic designer take it forward when they design the screens? Yeah, sure. Right. And generally, but even then, graphic designers do not understand the concept of scalability, because even when you're creating screens, so there's still graphic designer requires still maybe a little bit more training and a little bit more guidance before they can kind of get into the consistency game. But, that's yes, it is relatively easy to kind of get going from there. So just a minimal training and attitudinal setup and you're good to go. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Next slide. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Okay. So this is a wireframe. So this is an interview question. So remember, we talked about, UI, UX. A lot of you talked about what is UI, what is UX. I'm going to answer this question right here. Okay. This I'm hopefully will comprehensively solve this doubt for you guys. Okay. So here's a design where you're looking at, when we do interview process, we give wireframes and we give a wireframe and say, now make it look good. So graphic designer and, this, so we get a lot of answers for that. We say, make it, design it means they'll put colors and all that stuff. We get a lot of answers. But what we look for and how we can tell the difference between a UX designer and a UI designer. Okay. And generally in my mind, a UI designer is not worth hiring. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. Here are two solutions, two designs that people have submitted. Okay. Take a minute to look at it. Now, for the old guys that are there, you might probably already know the answers. That's fine. For the new guys, I'm hoping that this will actually answer your questions comprehensively. What is the difference between a UI guy and a UX guy? Okay. Or a graphic designer in one sense. Now, let's start a poll. We're going to do a poll. You get to choose A or B. Go for it. All right. So one of the skills to become a designer is to have an opinion, right? If you have not voted yet, I would encourage you to have an opinion and vote. It's okay. Your opinion is wrong. Doesn't matter. You learned something new. But if you never have an opinion, then you will never be able to learn. Cool. All right. Let's end the poll here. So majority of you have said that it's a very small minority, 63% of you said it's A is a better designer, and about 37% of you said B. Okay. Let's actually break it down. And I'd love, just type in your answers here. Why do you think it's A or B? Type your answers in there so I can see it. So Kalpana says A because I can find, I use here is I can apply Fitts law, right? Now this is what is interesting, right? Knowing the laws is one thing, knowing when to apply the law is another thing, right? So in this case, I would not say that Fitts law is the problem here, right? There are other problems, and this is what I'll show the higher order mindset. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's see. A, because it's visually easy to understand. Okay, B because A because it's visually, 1 because it's more clear and easy to understand. So UI elements are more accessible. So Apu says it's more accessible. I'm not sure what it means by accessibility, but I'm assuming you probably, the right colors or whatever. Visual hierarchy, alignment and color scenario. I'm assuming Lakshmanan is voted for A. In A, the main actions are highlighted. The CTAs are very clear. Good. So I'm glad you all have opinions. Now I'm going to break it down. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Now this is where the difference between a UI and UX guy comes in. The UX guy is trying to solve user problems, right? Remember, everybody says UX is empathy, empathy, empathy. Well, what problems are you solving? So from the perspective of problems, there are 4 different problems that you have to solve on this page. The first problem is discovering trains. I need to discover, because if I'm going from Hyderabad to Visakhapatnam, I want to discover where I'm going, isn't it? So I want to be able to discover the trains. That is one thing. Then I want to be able to compare the trains. Okay. So which train is better, which train is faster, which class is available, those are comparisons. Then I want to be able to see whether the ticket is available or not. And finally, I want to purchase it. In that order, remember, it's prioritization. Whenever a designer writes something, it's all prioritized. Highest priority to lower priority, right? So the first priority is to discover trains, and the last priority is to purchase, because you're not going to purchase without discovering trains, correct? Is everybody agreed on this? Type in yes. All right. Now let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So this is where now when you start thinking about, if you have to discover the trains, how many trains can you see on design A? 1.5, right? On design B, you're able to see 3. Now the problem is, I know I've already decided I'm going from Hyderabad to Visakhapatnam. Okay. Why are you wasting so much real estate on that? Right? My real estate, my primary focus is discover trains. So don't waste real estate. Right? So right there, this person has failed. Design A has failed because they really do not understand that first goal. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, how do you compare? Right? Which one is easy to compare? So my question is, look at both of those and can you tell me which train is the fastest train? Which train is the smallest journey time? Can you tell me which design? Can you tell me that? Is design B, because designer B has actually applied their thought and they said, oh yeah, it takes about 12 hours. It takes about 12.5 hours. So whatever the time frame is, they put in there, right? You can very quickly tell, right? Now, what other things can you do, right? So which of those trains are available, right? So I can automatically tell because the color is different, right? Check next availability on the second designer, design B. You can say the availability. So I can tell which of those trains are available. Just visually, I can tell what the game is there, right? The third thing, I don't, when you just look at it, it is very straightforward to compare which ones work, what is the pricing for all of them. I can tell very, very quickly just by looking at it in the order that people want to consume information. So the comparison designer B wins. Let's go to the next slide. Right? Checking availability. So which one is available? Right? Which one is visible? Right? So I would probably give half a credit to designer A, but again, because designer B has put additional colors, additional messaging, I can actually tell what the status is, how it's going to move forward. So I understand designer A, and again, this is again the scalability issue, right? Designer A did not think about different use cases. Even if you see first AC, second AC, third AC, designer A just selected first AC for everything. Designer B, they showed different positions to see how it looks. Designer B also looked like, okay, how will it look if it was weightless? How would it look in different use cases? So you can very quickly tell the differences between both of them. Right? So designer B wins this game as well. So let's go to the next one, the last goal. Right? Purchase. Now, if I'm going to come here, I've obviously come here to purchase it. Purchase is my mandatory requirement, isn't it? So why draw attention to purchase until people are ready to purchase it? Right? It's the equivalent of going into a shop And then, for all those of you that said the CTA is very clear, right? Well, it's like going to the shop and somebody is coming into your face, or like you go to a chaurasta and 10 will, sir, kharid lo, buy this, buy this, buy this. They're in your face, buy this, buy this. Well, why should I buy it? What is the product? What is the game? Isn't it? So designer A is basically created a chaurasta kind of an experience where people are just, it's a hawker kind of an experience. Designer B said, when you're ready to buy it, just buy it. Done. Solved. Right? So now when you look at it, that is one. Designer A is a basic graphic designer with no understanding of UX thought process. Right? Designer B is a rock star guy. Right? Let's go on to the next slide. Right? Now, for the 67% of you that voted A, I hope this changes your mind. Now you understand what is the difference between a UI guy and a UX guy. The UX guy is thinking experiences. The UI guy is only thinking, isme color dalo, naukri nikalo. Right? I'm just going to do what somebody's going to tell me to do. You're not going to get those jobs, those high-paying jobs and those opportunities if you have the A mindset. Okay? Cool. So everybody clear with this? Just type in yes and I can get going. Awesome. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. I'm going to do a quick portfolio walkthrough. I mean, I understand. Let me see how much time is there. So we are already about running late. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a relatively fast portfolio walkthrough, and then I'm going to talk about what you should be doing when you're doing your portfolio. Okay. And again, this, what I showed in the beginning also, again, when you're given a design task, that's how you need to be thinking. What are the problems that the users have? And then you start solving them. And then if you do it that way, even if your design is not visually amazing, you will get that opportunity. Okay, cool. So let's get going with this. Okay. So this is, not any one individual, but this was done by, again, this portfolio was also not done in India. But what I find is, this kind of boot camps are same all across the world. They will teach the same curriculum and all that, which is a big frustration of mine, but that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to just talk about this and where this person has made the critical mistakes. So let's go to the next slide. Right. First biggest mistake. I'm going to do the 5D technique. Right. If you're going to do the 5D technique, how are you different from everybody else, right? What problem are you solving? I think the first thing I really want to understand is what is the problem you are solving, and based on that problem, how is this strategy changing, right? If your strategy is not changing, and again, this is what I say is the difference between an expert and a novice. I'll give my example, like I wanted to learn cooking from my mom. Okay. My mom would give me the whole recipes, everything. And then when I try to cook it, it takes me about 3 hours to cook everything. By the time 3 hours are done, I'm not hungry anymore and I'm super tired. Okay. But when my mom does it, she cooks it in about 20 minutes flat. Now, what is the difference? Right? It's amazing taste. She's able to do it much faster. The difference is my mom gave me a process. I followed the process step by step by step by step. Right? She knew where to take the shortcuts. Right? She knew what tasks I need to do parallelly, what tasks I need to do sequentially, and that's how she's able to get the job done. That is exactly the difference between a designer who knows what they're talking about and a designer who does not know what they're talking about. Right? If a designer says the 5D process, 5X process, 5V process, whatever, right? And this is unfortunately the thing that is taught in pretty much every bootcamp. But if you do that, I know that you have no idea how to customize it. You are a baby, you're a bacha in the game. Right? That is the first point that I want you all to take away. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So let's look at this. Okay. So the discover is, you're basically looking at all of these strategies. This person has said, what are the challenges that I'm going to solve? I'm going to decrease the availability. So the challenges are decrease in ability to work independently, because when people do not have transportation, I think that's what he's trying to solve. Let's see. Oh, no. So the problem this person is trying to solve is every designer wants feedback. And so how do you get people to get feedback from experts? Okay. So that is what this individual has tried to solve, and they try to create a case study around it. Okay. So my question is, well, what is a specific problem? What is a specific outcome that you're going to do? Right. So what is a specific problem you're trying to solve? Because yeah, you're giving me a big Ramayana Mahabharata here, but what exactly are you trying to achieve in here? right? So approached a few designers, a few beginners who live close by and had short and crisp interviews. Well, okay, you had interviews, but again, what problem are you solving? So the challenges, decrease in ability to work independently. Okay, so designers who do not know how, if they don't get feedback, they can't work without support or guidance. They have the imposter syndrome, and they have visible expression of helplessness. They feel helpless. Okay. So now the person has basically said design strategy. Okay. When you look at design strategy, I don't see any strategy here, right? What I see is, okay, what are the technology constraints? Technology constraints are not strategy, right? General tasks are not strategy, right? Who is my target user is also not even a strategy, right? So what I am looking for in terms of a strategy is, how am I going to solve this problem? Okay, what are the different steps I'm going to take? That is what I want to look at in terms of strategy. What has been described here are constraints, right? What are my assumptions and constraints? That is what I'm looking at here. All right, so this doesn't work. Let's go to the next one. So just by looking at this, right, I did a bunch of interviews. Now there are like some really interesting questions, right? Do you have friends nearby? Is there any problem you face? How do you get, do you love to get accompanied, right? You have all these questions. Now, as a researcher, when I say, how do you love getting accompanied? That's a biased question. So you minimize it. Go ahead, minimize that. Yeah. So it's like saying, you know, I cook something and I give it to you and say, does it taste good? So what is the answer you're going to give me? You're just going to say yes, because you don't want to hurt my feelings, isn't it? Do you love to get accompanied is a biased question. No trained researcher is going to ask that question, right? So clearly this individual was not trained in research, but they were trying to demonstrate a skill in research. They're not going to get respect, right? So that is a big problem. So never talk about stuff that you're not good at or you're not strong at, okay? Because then it's just creating opportunities for the other person to realize that you don't know what you're talking about, okay? And the more I realize that, the more the less I start trusting you, okay? So how much can they help you? So do they help? But the other question is, okay, so do you have friends nearby? Is there any problem you face? Do you help? Do they help you regarding your problem? Well, my question is, if this product is for designers, okay, there is no question that specifically addressing the design problem that you're trying to solve, right? So how are you even solving the problem for designers? I have no idea. So again, you know, the whole research component, I have no trust in this individual at this point, right? Let's go on to the next slide. And again, keep in mind, you know, always go back to how Bhaskar was doing yesterday, right? And you can see the contrast between these. And this is honestly 95% of all portfolios that even I get in terms of applications. So now we're going to user personas. Everybody does user personas. Yesterday, Bhaskar did not do a user persona. Now, when you look at this, right, so it's a persona. Okay, so goals is to gain skills, create a network of people, engaging communities, creating communities and engaging in communities. Okay, so pain points are not getting user right feedback. So I would actually argue that, you know, okay, so why do you need a persona for this, right? So my question is, this persona seems like it was built because you identified the solutions and you said, now I'm going to write this story for this persona. It seems like a checklist, right? It doesn't seem like there is anything new or interesting in here, right? Or how did you collect that information, or what are the contrasts and all that stuff? I have no idea. How does somebody being an introvert or an extrovert help in your design? So for example, I'm going to come back to this, okay? So this saying the majority of the people are extroverts. That's what this person is saying. Okay. So then my question would be, okay, majority people are extroverts. Then when your product is designed, how will extroverts interact with this product? Right. And if you're not able to answer it, I can't give you credit for the persona that you did. Right. That's how I'm going to find fakers in this game. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. Scroll down more. Yeah. And this one is information architecture. Absolutely the wrong thing to do, right? Because again, like I said, if you're going to Amazon and the Amazon designer did information architecture for Amazon like this, right? That's completely wrong, because what this person is saying is, if I want to go into sign in successfully, I have to come to the onboarding screen and then I go to the sign in. I go to the sign in page and then I go to sign in successfully, right? Actually, can't you go to sign in directly if you are going through an email, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that this is for static websites. Okay, if you're creating dynamic products like B2B, B2C, Flipkarts, all those kinds of products, this system will not work. And this person, and unfortunately, most design boot camps will teach you this. They will teach you this, right? And this is something that you need to question your instructors, like, why should I do this? What is the benefit? How will I use this to design an interactive product? Right? Where one screen you can come to one place from 5 different places, and from the same place you can go to 5 different places, right? So for example, if you go to sign in successfully, there are only 2 places you can go to. You can go to registered successfully, or you can go back to the onboarding screen. That does not make sense, right? So that is why I would say these kind of information architectures, if you're doing it, is an immediate negative for type 3 companies. They will not even look at you right there. So let's go on to the next one. Already there are like 3 or 4 rejection criteria that are already set up. Let's go down. Okay. Now here's paper prototyping and low fidelity wireframes. Now, what is the problem with this? Right? Well, what do you want to do with these paper prototypes? Right? What ideation have you done here? What is the breadth of your thought? I don't know any of that, right? All I see is a bunch of lines, and I really don't understand how you're solving this problem or what you're doing. So really, you don't get any credit for this. Okay, because ideally what I tell people is, when you're doing your paper prototypes, you should be able to plan your real estate. In fact, when I was doing, when I was training the UX Reactor team, I would give them grid sheets, grid papers, and every grid is 10 square pixels, and you have to design within those 10 square pixels, and it has to account for how your screen is going to look. So that was a level of precision that I would expect from paper prototypes. When you do something like this, it tells me that you don't necessarily have the skills to go there. Because if you do something, and for example, if you have straight lines, clean stuff, I can tell you have some kind of an artistic background. But here, I don't even get that. Now let's go on to the next slide. Right. Now you did the style guide. Let's scroll down. Now this is something, again, everybody does style guide. I don't know what the deal is, but okay. So you've got Roboto. One is black, white and black. One is white and green. Then there's white and kind of grayish, and white on black on white, right? So scroll down. So wait a minute, right? Is that it? How many widgets are you going to have? How many icons are you going to have, right? This person has no understanding of creating that style guide. When do I use white on black? When do I use black on white? When do I use the grayish color? I have no rules, no systems. So the standard rule for a style guide is, if you give it to an engineer and you just give it to them and ask them to implement it, they should be able to understand, right? If they don't understand, then the style guide is absolutely useless. Right? So that is one issue. Now, when you come to this screen, again, I don't know what you're doing. Okay, let's scroll down. Okay, so this is the first time I'm seeing a screen that's reasonably good. But here also there are interesting problems. Right? Because if you look at the first box up there, Nick Jones, okay, and you look at the show all button, okay, the way it is coded, if you were an engineer, you would say this guy is an idiot. Right? The reason why is you have to write extra code because you have to create additional padding. The right-hand side is aligned with the right side of the show all button, but the left-hand side is not aligned with the left-hand side of the button, right? So you have to write extra code to make that happen. But then when you look down below, the show all is aligned with all the other modules down below. So I can see that there are technical issues. Now, when you look at the search box on top, there's another technical issue there, right? So there are a lot of challenges. Now, when I look at this experience as well, the question I'll ask is, have you designed it for an Android or iOS, right? So if you're done for iOS, do you know iOS standards? If you've done for Android, have you done Android standards? In this case, this individual did not follow any of the standards and created their own standards, right? Which in my case tells me that they have not understood it, right? So now my problem is, if I give them a product and I ask them to design it, they're going to basically suck up all my engineering resources, and they're going to basically create their own standards, which are going to cause problems for my users in the long term. Right? Now let's scroll down. Right? you'll get message and schedule everything. So this is an interesting component of get message. So my question again comes back. If you're an extrovert, how did you design the screen? How will an extrovert you play with your product? There will be no answer here, right? So overall, when you think about it, there are a lot of failures, including visual interaction research, as well as the portfolio presentation itself, right? That immediately makes this candidate like, they're not going to make it past the technical round. Even if the HR approves, they will get it, they will fail in the technical round right here. Okay. Does everybody understand all the mistakes that this individual has done in this portfolio? Cool. So let's go back. Okay. So here are 5 tips that you need to do. Okay. And I would say that this should be the minimum standard that you need to do, right? Avoid. 1, never talk about what you don't know. Okay. If you know something, even if you know only interaction, talk about it. Good. You will get a job. I guarantee you, right? But don't talk about stuff you don't know, because the moment you do that, you are walking on quicksand. And the moment you lose the trust of the interviewer, your battle is uphill. You have to convince them. Their mindset is, this guy is wrong unless they prove me otherwise. Okay. You never wanted to get into that situation. Do not talk about a rigid process, the 5Y process, 5D process. Don't make it rigid. Talk about the problem and how the process has been modified to achieve the solution. Okay. Don't get into technical details unless necessary. Okay. And don't talk about yourself. Okay. Now, when you do, identify a clear-cut problem. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. Okay. These are the constraints that I had. Okay. Then you say, okay, based on these constraints in this problem, this is how I change my process to do it, right? Because 90% of the time, you will not have the opportunity to do research, right? You may have to depend on existing research, or you may have to depend on maybe somebody's gut feeling, right? So there are a lot of those kinds of use cases. So what you do is you want to basically understand the constraints and you say, okay, how did I modify it based on the constraints? Okay. Then when you do your artifacts like alignment, spacing, all that stuff, make it technically strong. Even if you show me one screen, make sure that screen is technically strong. Right. And I encourage you to go back to the video from yesterday that where Bhaskar is talking about, and look at his design, his UI. Okay. And I challenge you to find mistakes in his screen. Right. It is technically perfect. Even though he shows only 3 screens, they're technically strong. Right. And then you finally come down to the last one, is demonstrate how you solve the problem on top. Right. That is what you're doing. You're basically identifying the clear-cut problem. Step 5, demonstration. Right. Now, I have somebody that says, Prasad says, you feel intimidated. Prasad, this is a lot of data. Right. And I'm basically giving this all to you in a matter of an hour and a half. Right. Literally. Right. And it is okay to feel overwhelmed. It is okay to feel that, because if somebody was doing that to me when I started, I would have freaked out, right? But what I want you to understand is there are strategies, right? So, I still remember there used to be a comic called Tinkle Comics. When, I don't know if it's still there in India or not, but we used to have those comics. So I wrote a story for Tinkle Comics, okay? And my story did not get published. Okay. And the author at that time used to be the gentleman called Anant Pai. He used to be called Uncle Pai. Okay. So Uncle Pai wrote me a letter personally and he signed it. And he was basically like, I want you to understand that Rome was not built in a day. Okay. So keep trying. It will work. Okay. So that is what I will tell you. We have a lot of community resources. We have a lot of systems. We have a lot of content available for you. Everything is available for you. Right. So don't be worried that, oh my God, I can't do it. Just take it step by step and you will make it. Okay. And honestly, just getting from 0 to getting a job is about 3 months, 3 to 4 months. That's it. There's nothing, mind blowing about it. You just have to know the science, you know how to apply it, and you need to practice it. And I will talk a little bit about it today, but it's a very, very simple process to do that. Okay, you just have to have the discipline to do it. That's it. So do not be intimidated. For those of you that are looking at saying getting scared, it's very simple. All right, let's go on to the next slide. All right. So again, Hire-A-Thon, right? So for those of you that are, you know what, I want to try my chances, I want to get into it, you know, I would love for you to kind of apply for it. We have 2 companies that are definitely hiring. There are a bunch of other companies that will also be hiring. So again, you may not be qualified for some of the companies, but some of the other companies might want you based on your skills, right? There's nothing wrong. And like I said, you know, when you're starting your internship, don't be choosy. It's a type 1 company, type 2 company, type 3 company, right? Take the job, get into the market first. And then once you're in the job, that's why, you know, most of my intensive programs are designed for people with at least 1 year of experience. Because once you have a year of experience, you understand the practicalities of how things happen. Then when you learn very fast. Okay. So that's what it is. So do not worry about what kind of company it is. Just get into the job, get going. Okay. So the process is very simple. You participate in this series. You take a simple test, right? There'll be a bunch of questions. We want to make sure you're able to qualify the theory. Then you get a problem, you solve the problem, you interview with companies, and you get the offer, right? And on the interviewing side, there'll probably be me and a bunch of other team members from UX Reactor, as well as team members from Nations Benefits, and a couple of other companies, depending on how they want. Some companies will tell us, you tell us how good or bad this person is. Some companies will tell us that, you know what, we want one of our people to evaluate. So you might end up being evaluated both by some of the individuals from those companies as well. Okay. So the top 5 designers get a chance to win up to 5 lakhs. And I think this is a really cool opportunity. If you want to just try your chance, do it, get in there. I think this, you know, if nothing else, you know why, I mean, especially one of the good things about the Hire-A-Thon is if you do not get selected, you will actually get feedback why you didn't get selected and what you need to do to kind of improve. Because again, you know, we are kind of independent of the company. So this is the way that we can support you on this. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Oh, sorry, go back. Yeah, 2023. Thank you, Azad, for pointing that out. So it is starting on January 2023. So thank you very much, Azad. So it's a silly mistake, but good catch. So let's go on to the next one. So some of you might not feel ready for it. And again, that's completely okay. But what we feel is, you know, if you want to do some practice tasks, we are going to do 6 weeks of practice groups. You know, where you can just come in, we'll give you tool exercises, we'll give you design audits, how do you audit a design, you'll get the theory as well as the practice. You basically, it's a 1 week quick brush up over those topics so that you understand at least what's expected, and then you kind of go in, and we will also give you support in terms of how to write your resume, how to, you know, talk about your portfolio and all that. We will kind of give you, we will discuss, and a lot of it is group discussions and reviews that we will do. And you will have mentors from our community that will come in and sit down with you and help you with it. And this was one of those things that I always felt like, you know, when I was applying for jobs, it was just like you're on your own. And I don't really like that. I never liked that feeling. You know, I kind of feel that, you know, you should get the help. You know, maybe somebody is a 49, somebody is a 51. How do you decide that, right? So the intention here is for those people who are on the 49s, if we can help you get up to the 51, it's really good. So this is for you guys. If you're interested, you'll have this practice group with a 6-week quick recap practice so that you're kind of getting it done. And, you know, you can even put that as part of your portfolio and kind of get the conversation going. All right. Awesome. So any questions or thoughts at this point? Go back. Yeah, so freshers can apply for practice group, but understand that, you know, there is a separate program that we are going to be starting in January, which is called a portfolio builder series. So what we say is, to get your first job, it should not take you a long time and it should not cost you an arm and a leg, right? So it's basically like a lot of content. You watch those videos, you practice it, you get feedback, and then build up your portfolio very, very quickly. So we have a separate thing called portfolio builder series. I don't want to mix this because I want to put all my energy on people that are likely to get jobs, right? So that is why I would say that this is not really the perfect place for freshers, but you can apply for the portfolio builder series and we can help you there. Okay. So how will they get a chance to point out the flaws of an app? See, I think this is what you need to do, right? So when an individual, Merrill says, you know, when an individual applies for a UX internship, when will you get the chance to, this is something that you need to be aware of, how to evaluate, how to audit products, and how to question it. That is basic first 101, right? To get your first job, that's basic stuff you need to do. So Ankur, this will be in the evenings, right? So what will happen is we will be in touch 2 times a week is what I'm assuming, on Saturdays, probably on weekends. And then during the weekdays, you probably spend an hour or two practicing on your skills, and then you come in on a Wednesday, and then you get feedback for the work, and then you kind of go back. A lot of it is just like, literally, there'll be team groups, and then you get feedback at a group level, and then you also coordinate with other people who are your peers. Okay, so but ideally it's all going to be the evenings because it's designed for working professionals. It's going to be post 7 o'clock. That's what it is, right? So Sarita says you want to learn UX from the scratch. So I will park that. We will talk about it tomorrow. Come join 30 minutes early, Sarita, and then I'll answer your question. Om says, let's see, I have 10 years of total experience in graphic design. Now I'm working as a UX designer for the last 8 years. Absolutely, participate, right? But understand that, how should I put it, right? When companies like Nations Benefits or UX Reactor are hiring, right? It is very rare that they will find people who are perfectly competent, right? It is very, very rare. Right. So what the company is actually looking at is they're looking at people who are good material, who have the raw material, who have the basic skills in place, who are able to execute cleanly. And then they're saying, okay, I'm going to give this person a certain amount of feedback and grow. Okay. So there is also the expectation that it's not like, on day one, you're going to basically be a rock star. You may be like, weak in 1 or 2 areas and strong in 3 or 4 areas. The company will kind of pick you up and get you in there. So what usually happens in terms of experience with people with 8+ years of experience, okay, and this is where the cultural challenge will come in, is when they interview you, they want to see whether you'll be able to take feedback or not, right? So because if you have too much experience and you're not able to take feedback and you're not able to understand the new processes and systems, then it becomes very tough for you to gel culturally with that organization. So if you feel confident that you're culturally a humble kind of person and you have the motivation to learn and grow, by all means participate, right? But if you feel, no, I'm too far along in my career, I really don't want to deal with this kind of feedback and stuff, then that's okay, right? And so it's a good realization to have. Okay, so let's see. What is the starting salary for UI UX designers? And again, UI designers, their salary will start anywhere from 2 lakhs to 6 lakhs, right? I mean, it's a complete random because UI designers ka role hi nahi hai, it's a little bit complex. UX designers usually will start with at least about, within our companies that I'm aware of, they will start off, if you do not have a proper certification, right? If you don't have, let's say, a design degree or whatever, right? And you are doing it, you will still be able to start with a minimum of 6 lakhs. Right. And if you're looking at, if you have a degree and stuff like that with like, an IIT guy, like, who's coming out, your IIT Hyderabad guy will probably, get in the range, the average, and I'm talking averages. There'll always be outliers, but the IIT Hyderabad guy will probably start off at about an 8 to 10. An IIT Delhi guy or IIT Mumbai guy might actually start off at 15 to 16 lakhs. Right. And again, these numbers change depending on the degree and all that. But the thing that is important to understand is not where you start, it's where you end. Okay. Because the people who are capable, their salaries grow very, very quickly. Right. And your degree might get you your higher salary, but you might stagnate very quickly as well. So remember the zone of stagnation, zone of frustration. So people might fall into those zones very, very quickly. So I would not worry about what the starting salaries are. You want to worry about your career is long. You want to worry about how you're kind of getting through that, getting past the zone of stagnation and frustration and making it to the happy spot. Okay, cool. So any interview preparation course, we are not aware of it. That's the reason why we are doing this 6-week preparation. I wish there was, but I do not know of anything. So, I mean, I would just say join into the practice group and get going. The portfolio builder series is actually a dedicated program that is designed to give like, how do you build a portfolio? How do you interview with your portfolio? How do you build your resume? How do you communicate? How do you present yourself? All of those things are part of the portfolio builder series. So yeah. Is UI UX designing a nightmare for introverts as a career? I'm an introvert, surprising, but I'm an introvert, right? And, I enjoy my work, therefore I talk about it, right? Otherwise, if you see me in a party or in a room or wherever, I'm the quietest guy in the room. I'm probably standing in a corner by myself with a drink in my hand. That's me, right? So I'm a hardcore introvert that loves design and I love to share what I know. So that's where it is. So it's not a nightmare, and again, depending on the specialization, right? If you're a researcher, you want to be able to deal with people. But if you're an interaction designer, great. You don't really need to deal with people. You're dealing with concepts. If you're a visual designer, you still don't need to deal with people if you don't want to. You're dealing with concepts. So there are different opportunities for different people. So again, there's no such thing that says only extroverts can do it or only introverts can do it. All right. So let's see. So I'm gonna, oh my God, the questions keep coming. This is not ending. Okay, so I'm going to take 3 more questions and then the rest of the questions I'm going to push to tomorrow, if that's okay with you guys. So let's see. So Om says you have 10 years of experience total as a graphic designer, and now I'm working as a UX designer for the last year. Yes, we answered that, yes. So I want to apply for portfolio to build a series. So how do I apply? You can just basically go in and there's a, you just register for it. So I think Rajiv or somebody, you can ping Rajiv, we will send you the link, no worries. What is the starting salary is done? What is the time available for hackathon? So hackathons will probably be run initially. The first couple of activities will be done prior, during the weekday, because it's just a matter of 1 hour, questionnaire, exam or whatever that you're doing live, or 1 or 2 hours. And then after that, when you're getting into the hackathon, it's probably going to be like a full weekend kind of a thing, morning to evening. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have the time for that weekend to be able to execute on that. All right. So Shushita says, beginner visual designer, are you fit for the hackathon? Probably not, right? So because again, you need to have at least some experience. Now, what I would encourage you to do is, start, Saddal actually has a video online. There's lots of videos. I think take one tool, like either Figma or XD or whatever, and ace it and learn how to reverse engineer. So what you do is now, what people will tell you is take a website and design it, right? No, not that, right? Look at Google Web or Google Gmail or whatever, and design all the interactions, right? And look at the visuals and the colors and the layouts and all that. And the more you practice, you kind of get really good at that. But as far as this hackathon is concerned, if you have less than a years of experience, then you probably will not qualify. Okay. Interview preparation ho gaya. And then last one question is, yeah. So Harshita says, you gained 6 months of experience full-time. Again, I don't want to give you false hopes, Harshita, that you will get selected, but apply, right? I mean, there may be other companies. You may not be an appropriate fit for UX Reactor or Nations Benefits, but if you think you have the skills, right? You think you can push it, apply. There may be other organizations that may want to pick you up. Okay, so that's what I would say for Harshita. And then, yeah, so if you go for the practice group, absolutely, the practice group is designed for the Hire-A-Thon. So Amhita is asking, if I opt for practice group, am I eligible for Hire-A-Thon as well? No, so you register only once, right? You get in the practice group, it is automatically registered for the Hire-A-Thon as well, right? Because the intention is, the reason we are giving you this practice is so you can succeed in the Hire-A-Thon. Okay, so you're doing both of those at the same time. Awesome. So thank you very much, guys. That brings today to an end. Help us spread the word. Again, we do a lot of these events. And again, all of these are free. Now, some of you basically said, I can't believe it's free. The point is that, right? So see, if I look at training as a revenue generation ecosystem, then of course I'm going to charge you money, right? But if I'm looking at training as a way for me to build relationship with you so I can actually hire people, I won't. This is not where I make my money, right? My money is made when companies find good talent and they kind of pay me the salary. right? And so that is how we work. Our whole model is where it's a company-centric approach, and we kind of share our knowledge. So again, if you want a lot of content, good content, you want to learn, practice, grow, and all that stuff, do share the college, the workshop. And then I believe the link for the sharing, for subscribing on YouTube is also given. So you can basically sign up and get going from there. All right. We would love for you to like, share content, and then kind of spread the word as well. So tomorrow, right, we are going to talk about how to crack interviews. So we have talked about your portfolio. Now we're going to focus on interviews. Okay. There are basically 36 types of interview questions. That's it, right? And these questions, there will be variations of these 36 questions, but if you prepare for them, you're going to ace every interview that comes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to communicate to up-level your title. Okay. So if you're going from one level to the next level. Okay. Second, we are going to give you task samples, what kind of tasks you will get when companies are recruiting you. And these are not like the type 1 tasks. These are type 3 tasks that you will get and how you're going to be evaluated. Okay. And then we will also talk about the 36 interview questions that you should prepare for all interviews. Okay, cool. So anybody's questions that I have not answered, like internships, freshers, all that stuff, come tomorrow 30 minutes early. Ask your questions on the YouTube video so that we, I can make sure that I'm giving you the opportunity. Even today, a lot of people had questions, but I was not able to get to them. So I will answer all the questions in the order they are asked in the YouTube channel so that you get an opportunity to get your feedback. Okay. So again, this is step 2 of building your personal strategy. Already you know where you are qualifying for. Those of you that have done the previous assessment, you know whether you're interaction, visual, research, or combination. So now we are going to talk about your scope of thought. Okay. So this is a survey, this is a tool that you have. So this link will be shared with you in WhatsApp as well as on Discord. And again, do join all those places where you answer those questions and you'll get the answer about what your scope of thought is and where you need to go and how you need to be going from there. Okay. So we will only look at the answers that we received till 4 p.m. on 28th. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And I think Nikita is asking on YouTube, you're a recent graduate and learning UX. You want to learn more in depth, like you mentioned. And what should you mentioned, what should I do in practice group? Okay, I think she's asking the question, should I go into the practice group or the portfolio builder? My advice is if you're just starting off, go into the portfolio builder, right? The practice group is more for people that, are looking for jobs and they have at least, they're capable of kind of hacking the experience job space, because pretty much all the jobs that we will have as part of the hackathon are going to be for people with experience. They're not for freshers, but they will be separate opportunities for people with freshers. So do not get disappointed. There will be other opportunities that will come, but the portfolio builder series is probably better for you if you're coming in fresh. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great night and drop your questions, and then we will see you tomorrow.